Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Heartstopper, Season 1, Episode 5, Friend. In this episode, it's Charlie's birthday, and we are all celebrating. And we are all celebrating together. And we are all celebrating instead of going out with a certain somebody. I'm so sorry, sweetie. It's been a bad week for you. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Cindy for commissioning this episode. Cindy is in the chat laughing at how every week I say, I'm sorry I'm going so late. I do front load most of these recordings with talking about my outfit for Beyonce, though, so that's on me. I love Cindy. She said earlier, me booking the last slot of the day. Maybe she'll like it enough to go over sometimes. Yeah, maybe. I think that I recorded one of the longest episodes I've done for this show. Maybe the only other one that's outlasted has been for Cradle, I think. So, you guys, this one was such a relief. That's the only word I can use to describe it. I was so devastated at the ending of the last episode. And when I wrapped on recording, I said like that Owen was out walking the dog and that I thought I could go and watch it right away. And by the time I was able to actually like finish my quick edit and do a couple other things, there was just no time. So I was like, all right, well, I'll watch it the next day. And I found myself actually afraid to watch it because I was so worried. This whole thing with Imogen, I didn't know how long it was going to drag out. I didn't know how much Nick was going to play along before eventually, hopefully, like telling her he wasn't interested in her. So I was like actually resisting as much as a part of me was like, I got to go watch it right away. I didn't wanna. You know what I mean? I really wasn't sure how this was going to wrap. And I fully thought maybe by the end of this episode, it might not. So my relief. Oh my God. So profound. We start things off with the four friends playing Monopoly. I think they're at Tao's house. And it's pretty fun. Tao and Charlie are arguing over who's winning. And it's the inevitable, unending Monopoly game. If you play Monopoly, I don't even need to tell you. You know. Like, oh, that's my book. Dion says it's Charlie's room. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't even see. It looks so different because he's got all these pillows and stuff on the floor right now. But you guys, Monopoly. My mom, I remember my dad really liked board games and he would buy some very like cool ones for the era. Now board games are such a thing. You could find all kinds that are really unusual. But, you know, when I was growing up in the 90s, it was not such a thing. And finding like unique ones was really surprising and fun. But Monopoly, of course, you could get anywhere. And so he got it and loved it. Because he was fascinated by it. But my mom, she like banned playing it after a while. Because it was just absolutely agonizing. And as a kid, you would think that a long game like that, it would lose my interest. But I didn't really feel it so much. So when she expressed like irritation at how long everything was going, I was kind of surprised. Now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, look, it's really rough when a game goes on too long when you're playing with adults But when you're playing with kids, like, that's way worse, right? I mean, so anyway, what's going on here is the two of them arguing back and forth at one another while Elle is asking, can we just like play something else? And Isaac is like laying on a mattress that's on the floor, and he winds up with his toe under the board and just kicks it over and then goes, oops, sorry. I don't even think he says sorry, actually, now that I say that. But that is the fucking way to handle this. Like, he looks like he's trying to get some sleep, is what he's saying, is what he's like seeming like. He's all snuggled down, and you really get the vibe of like, if you guys would just shut the fuck up, I could just get some rest. Can you please just end this for all our sakes? And they wind up calling it a draw. But it's a nice little, what's the word I want here? Metaphor, I guess, for the sort of antagonism going on between Charlie and Tao here, because they're not exactly enemies. Like, of course they're not exact. They're not even close to enemies. But there's a lot of tension between the two of them. And that's sort of like a game like this can do that as well, where it's like, look, I know this person's my friend, but I'm getting irritated with them because they are not getting that I'm winning the game, and they're not giving me my credit. And the whole energy of it is just a microcosm of the energy between them in general. So then we have Tao talking to Elle in his room in Charlie's room, while Charlie is downstairs with Isaac making hot cocoa. And once again, talking to her about what Nick is like and the fact that he's hanging out with these nasty 11 years and that he is going to crush them if they are mean to Charlie. And when she's like, crush them, huh? He says, well, verbally. And she says, doesn't sound like the safest tactic. And he says, I don't like playing it safe. And like does a little bit of like, oh, I'm so noble. But he does it in a self-aware way, which was very funny, actually. And I really like, so there's a moment where they have some chips, and he says, let's tell him when he gets back. And she says, fine, if it'll make you stop talking about it. And he starts to say, I think that Nick, and she just says, oh my God, Tao, can we talk about something else? Oh, am I not being entertaining enough for you? No, you're not. You're being annoying. And I love that she can say that to him. Because, you know, there are some people who are so sensitive to the concept that they might be being annoying that you could never actually say those words to them without it absolutely crushing their spirit. And I'm not trying to say like that's wrong or anything to be that sort of sensitive, but you know what I'm saying? Like, some people would not take that as a right now at this moment, this is what you're being. That does not mean that is who you are. There are people who can conflate those things and really take them personally and obsess over them when you only meant it as this like one thing that they were doing. But I like that she feels secure enough in knowing that he won't take it the wrong way, that she can just say that to him and be very honest about it. And he says, what would you like instead? Should I perhaps perform some sort of an interpretive dance? And he gets up and begins to dance. And it's really, it's something, you know? And I love that when she says, well, this is worse. But anyway, so the two of them have a moment later on in the episode where they're looking at each other and we're getting some like little hearts around mostly Elle's head. It seems like they have gone around Tao's head too. So you guys know I was like not really sure whether Elle was into girls or boys or both. And it seems like at least she does like boys and is into Tao. I had already felt like Tao was into her, but I wasn't sure if it was quite reciprocated. And also when she like has this moment of looking at it with little hard eyes, she ends up with a sad expression and seems to sort of like mentally pull away from him. And I don't know if she thinks he isn't interested, if she thinks that even if he were interested, it's a bad idea. Like, you know, there's all kinds of things that could be running through her head. Because this is the hazard when you have a small group of friends, especially like in school. It's so hard because if you're old enough to be more out in the world and things kind of like implode with a particular friend group, it sucks. Don't get me wrong, but there is possibility for starting another friendship with other people because you are able to, like, especially if you're in college, I feel like that's a really sweet spot for that. But when you're in school, you're locked in with whoever you share your school with for whatever amount of time you're at that school. And if things don't work out with these people, you're just kind of going to have to deal with like a lot of uncomfortable situations. And there's even for me like a sense of like almost even if your friend group does implode, a lot of times you wind up like carrying on with that friend group despite the fact that it sort of fell apart, simply because there's not another option. You've just got to make the best of it. So there'll be people who like stay, quote, friends. And by that, I mean, they still hang out. They still like, you know, when they are breaking into pairs for lab, they will still pair up with each other, but they actually don't like each other that much anymore because of the things that have happened. And to a degree, that's great training for later in life. You don't just get to walk away from every person you don't get along with. Unfortunately, sometimes you are, you know, they're your family. Sometimes they're somebody you work with and you just have to figure out how to make nice and continue living without absolutely cutting them dead in the street. But I could understand how, with only the 4 of them in this group of friends, she might not want to like test the waters with Tao, because if that goes bad, what the fuck then? You know, like you basically have to ask your friends to choose one of you to see, or split between the two, and it's just never going to be the same again. Unless you can be extremely mature and things end in such a way that you can move on from that. I mean, you know, I'm not saying they're not capable of that, but I will say that I wasn't capable of that myself when I was in school. So at this point, this is so tough, you guys. Charlie says, I'm thinking about inviting Nick for my birthday this weekend, and I didn't want it to be awkward because you guys don't really know him. And Elle looks so tense. I think Elle would have been fine with it if it weren't for the conversation she had just had with Tao, who looks extremely anxious. And here comes Isaac, a fucking real one. Just saying, I kind of assumed he was coming anyway. Can we all just fucking pour one out for Isaac on this? Oh, thank you, dude. Literally always coming through. I don't know how you know. You're like, you you guys have seen Love Actually. Do you remember Mr. Bean in that? And how he's like this weird little figure that always manages to cut in and slow things down when you need them to be, or interfere in things that need interfering. That's like the role Isaac plays in this friend group to me. He's the one that's like making things happen because he recognizes that without him, his friends would just like maybe stagnate and sit still. So I really love this for him. I was just like, you know, I don't know what he's got going on in his own private life, but he's doing great managing theirs. So good for you, sir. So we then go to Nick, who is sitting outside with Imogen, and he starts to turn to her to be like about our date, and she is crying, looking at her phone. And it turns out her dog died. And this was like simultaneously so sad and so funny. You guys, when one of my dogs inevitably dies, I am absolutely going to lose my fucking shit. I will not be okay. Like, I feel like it's the sort of thing that I may take harder than the death of my dad, because at least my dad and I had some distance growing between us anyway. So, I just feel like the death of pets, I always understood how significant it was intellectually, but my cats, as much as I love them, I do, it's a really different thing. These dogs, it will destroy me. So I just want to say I fucking feel for her a great deal here. And you guys, what's funny about this is how poor Nick, like, he had been about to try and let her down easy, and she's already going through this awful thing. So he doesn't want to, like, she says something about how it's been such a shitty week and he can't bring himself to, like, pile onto that, which I really get. And when his mother breaks it down for him later, she says, you shouldn't go out with someone just because you feel sorry for them. Putting it in such simple terms. She's dead right. She is. But it's one thing to, like, know that, and it's another thing to have to, like, shovel another shovelful of shit onto somebody's already shitty covered week. And this, like, there was something so funny about the perfect timing of this in terms of it foiling his plan. Like, this is a trope that I actually do find really funny, is, and it gets played up a lot in different comedies. There's a character like this in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he's not around that much, but anytime he shows up, people will try and, like, just have regular conversations with him, and he will unexpectedly drop the most tragic information about his life, but he doesn't do so in a, like, feel sorry for me sort of manner. He does it in this really matter of fact, like, well, I found my wife cheating on me with our accountant, who it turns out had access to our bank account and emptied the account. So I'm currently living out of the trunk of my sedan. And he'll just, like, say this shit. And everybody in the episode always has some bad news to give him. And he just keeps telling them more and more about his horrible life. And they're all just like, how do we tell him? What do we do? I really enjoy this trope because it is so understandable and so awkward, but also ultimately irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, she's like, so what did you want to say about our date? And he says nothing. And I just like, oh God. She's like, well, why don't we get something to eat and then we can go to the cinema? And he agrees. But then, of course, we go to homeroom and Charlie is sitting next to him and excited because it's his birthday. And he says it's like on Saturday. And you see Nick just be like, oh, wait, is it? And Charlie says, me and my friends are going bowling and I wanted to ask you to come, but I know you don't really know them, so you don't have to. And Nick immediately says yes. You guys, I just really want to take a step back here because it's very easy to take it for granted. Of course, Nick is going to want to hang out with Charlie on his birthday, which, like, one would hope you could just take it for granted. But the thing is, the confrontation that he had with Tao so recently, that was super uncomfortable. And I would really understand if he had to think about it for a second. I wouldn't be mad at him at all if he had a moment of kind of like, oh boy, well, I care about this guy, so I'm going to do it, but also this is going to be tough. It's not even an instant. There's no hesitation whatsoever. He's immediately like, yes, like before he's even finished the sentence practically. And then the two of them are just doing like little stuff here at their desk, and it's just the cutest thing. And Nick says it's really nice of you to like leave me absolutely no time to get you a present. And Charlie's like, you don't have to get me a present. And he's like, yeah, I'm getting you one, so hush. So what we wind up with, you guys, is the best. He gets him a frame with a picture of the two of them and his dog in the snow. It's great. It's wonderful. It's the best. It's a perfect gift. It's perfect. The best. Anyway, so, oh my God, you guys, I forgot about how Harry finds out that they're meeting on Saturday and starts like ribbing Nick about it. Imogen told me you're meeting up on Saturday. She's telling everyone, actually. And you see Nick realize, like, oh, shit. Right. Forgot about that. So, as they're talking about this, here comes fucking Tao and Charlie are walking out of the school front door. And Harry just picks up a ball. I don't know if it's like, they don't have baseball, is it? Maybe it's like a cricket ball. I don't know what that is, but it looks like a baseball. It seems hard too, like it bounces, but not a lot. So I don't think it's rubber. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. He just sees them coming and is like, oh, here we go, and fucking chucks it. And Tao completely loses his temper. And I do not blame him one bit. I honestly was like pleasantly surprised at how much I was on Tao's side, because I have been so frustrated with him that I was worried I was going to spend all of the episode just being annoyed. And instead, I just thought he handled this well. And I was kind of mad at Charlie, actually, because once they walk away, Charlie's like, you shouldn't have done that. You're just making things worse. And I was like, nah, dude. Look, Charlie, I get what you think in terms of your relationship with Nick and everything, but you cannot ask Tao to just deal with that because of how much you like the bully's friend. Like, especially considering Nick has told you he doesn't want to hang out with his friends anymore, that he doesn't really like them. So getting on the wrong side of Harry isn't even that big a deal at this point. Yeah, he is still hanging out with them like before and after school and stuff, but it's just not that serious. He isn't like loyal to them, you know? So I just don't think it's a big deal. And so Tao like confronts him and is just in his face about it, which I applauded. And I love that he says, watch out, dick nozzle. And Nick shoots to his feet here and says, Harry, stop it. And Harry says, what, are you best friends with these weird little year 10s now? And Nick rightfully says, just stop picking on people for no reason. And Harry says, wow, what are you, gay for them? And Tao says, classic Harry, resorting to homophobia when you can't think of a good comeback. And Harry's friends laugh. Like, Harry's not coming out looking good in this exchange. I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't sure if they would demonstrate any approval for anything anyone but Harry said. And I'm not saying that them laughing at Harry is necessarily a good thing. If anything, it could just make things worse. But I personally just found it a little bit reassuring that they were laughing with Tao instead. Like the tide felt like it had turned. And Tao says, are you in a mood? Which is what he had said or no, Harry says, "Are you in a mood?" Which is what he had said earlier to Nick. And I'm like, is this just a thing? Like to say, "Are you in a mood today?" And Tao replies, "Are you?" Serious question. Life must be really hard when your only personality trait is rich bellend. And again, Harry's friends laugh and Tao grabs him by the arm and pulls him away. And Harry is just left standing there with no response. I am not mad at it. I'm just not. And I understand very much that Charlie's reaction of being like, "You shouldn't have done that, you're making it worse," is really a reaction to Harry saying, "Are you gay for them?" Like, you know, of course that's what he's responding to and feeling a way about. I totally get that. However, Charlie, you cannot expect Tao to just like take that. I'm sorry, bro, but you can't. It's not fair to him. There's most of this, I feel like Tao is being unfair to you and not allowing you to like explore other friendships and wants you to be boxed in. But here comes a point where you're just wrong, bro. Like, you've got to let him stand up for himself. And it's actually kind of baller that he did it the way that he did. And I just, you know, the whole like, he says it's not them versus us because of Nick. Yeah, he can look after himself. I don't want him to be dragged into this. Well, we can't possibly hurt your new best friend, Nick Nelson. Look, normally Tao's attitude will get me rather irritated, but he was 100% right to react this way here. Like, you know, the way that he stood up for Charlie here, just for him to be like, "You shouldn't have said," I was so bummed. And then, of course, Tao looks over his shoulder and he sees Charlie, like, or not Charlie, Nick, sort of close up with Imogen. And it really looks like they're sort of flirting, and there's just it looks away. And it cuts from there directly to Nick at home cuddling his doggy and looking through Instagram, and there is a picture of him and Imogen together, and she posted it, of course, and there's a comment that's like, "You two are beyond cute together." Oh my god. I'm sorry. I shouldn't make fun, because these people don't mean anything by it. They're trying to be supportive of their friend because they think that this is what everybody wants. But oh my god. Oh my god. So, yeah, this is when his mom comes home. And she asks if he had a good day. And he just kind of... And then he explains that this girl, like, everybody seems to want us to get together. I just don't feel that way about her. But I felt so bad because her dog died. And I don't know how to say no to her. She was so upset. And she says, "You shouldn't go out with her just because you feel bad for her." But then she says, "The right girl will come along. Don't worry." And I really appreciate this, like, example of how a casual comment and assumption can just be really hurtful, even when you absolutely did not mean anything by it. Like, this is what it means to start to be more aware of your language that you use and like the way you just leap to assumptions. And I am still working on this all the time. I often will be like, you know, just doing the like assuming a new person is heterosexual in like a new character in something or whatever. Or just using, for example, like going straight to certain pronouns because you think, you know, you may, like, it's likely that, you know, like the majority of the time you're dealing with cis people, but, you know, like, you're just not always. And even if somebody appears cis, they may not be. So you just can't do that. And it's so difficult to get used to because we are fucking programmed literally from birth. Like, unlearning all of this stuff is so tricky. And it takes so much like constant awareness and self-monitoring. And you could do something like this and say it to somebody and they would never even tell you that you did. And you'll just blithely go on the rest of your life not knowing that you inadvertently kind of devastated them, because they are so used to this sort of thing happening that they don't bother to mention it to people anymore, like assuming that they ever come out to you or anything. And that's the part that I always struggle with the most, is thinking back on like the times that I probably hurt somebody and they just like took it and I never found out about it. And I never got a chance to understand what I did or say that I was sorry, or, you know what I mean? Like, and knowing that they just walked around carrying that thing that I said without thinking. And that was how they saw me, as somebody who was potentially like unsafe because I just fucking was thoughtless. So it's just such a small moment because she doesn't mean anything by it. I don't think. I'm going with like that she would be supportive if he came out. And I don't know that that's true, but I'm hopeful it's true. And I'm going to assume it is until proven otherwise. And even parents who would be supportive of their kids do tend to make a lot of assumptions in their language. And that's also like, add it to the long list of reasons that I do not feel like I'm capable of dealing with having a kid. That's a lot of relearning just for myself, and having to like relearn and instill new values into a child at the same time. It's just a lot. So anyway, I just really liked the whole scene, and the fact that he feels open enough to talk to her and is like, he is confiding in her, but even while she's being helpful and supportive, she's saying something that causes him to close up. It's just a really good example of how you can be, you think, very supportive and it doesn't hit quite the way you intended. Sorry, there's a bunch of chat happening that I almost missed. That's My Book says, I also, since watching this show and watching other reactors, have noticed how much adults romanticize teenagers or even often speculate on their romantic life as a form of banter or trying to hold a conversation with a teen. Having had a teen come out to me recently as aromantic, I cringe every time an adult relatively casually speculates on their romantic life. Yep. That is, look, you guys, this is such a thing. And I'm glad you brought this up, because so many people go immediately to, so are you married? So do you have a boyfriend? So do you have kids? And like, not for nothing, I get that those feel like very safe topics, but like step back and look at that, and those are some extremely touchy topics, actually. There are so many things we could be asking instead. And again, I understand why they seem like they should be safe, but like, not really. And it is one of the first go-to things that people bring up in conversation when they're trying to make small talk. We have got to learn how to be better at small talk. That's really what it's about. Like, most of us don't really have to engage in it as much as we used to, because so many of our interactions throughout the day are with people we know or online. Like, we don't have to do as much either in person or on the phone as we did. But I think, in as much as like it can be really nice to stay within our bubble and feel safe with the people we know, I think we are kind of like losing touch with a sort of just courtesy that comes with having to deal with strangers often. And it's tiresome and it's draining, but also there are advantages to like learning how to navigate that a little bit better. Cindy says, everyone just assumes Nick is hetero. Even he assumed he was, so her comment is probably something she said multiple times and neither of them has ever realized, but it hits different now. Yeah, that too. So, you can think that, oh, this is safe to say, but it's always good to just leave things a little vague and give people room. That's all. Just give people room to potentially be different. So then we go to the bowling alley. It's an arcade, really. And I love this. I was wondering, because Charlie is standing there looking so uncertain. He's got a big like sticker on his chest that says 15. I'm just like, oh my God, he's a child, like a literal infant. And he, I think, was worried that maybe Nick wasn't going to come. But Nick comes, brings him a little gift. He doesn't open it until later, but I already talked about what it is. And it turns out Nick is the last one to arrive. I really want to go bowling, you guys. I haven't gone bowling in such a long time. But it is a really good activity for a group that's like not too big a group, but it's different than just like sitting at a table drinking and playing a game or sitting in front of the TV. It's just like a nice change, you know? And Nick says, I think I know her from somewhere. And apparently like kind of recognizes Elle. I'm not sure if he puts it together, but it doesn't seem like it bothers him or matters to him. Charlie says, sorry in advance if Tao says something rude to you, but that's just how he is. I like that he's not like, he doesn't really mean it. He's like, no, he means it. He's just, kind of a dick, and that's how he is. We just get used to it. So we have like, a little bit of a time with our friends hanging out, and it seems okay. I have to laugh though, because the subtitles in brackets, it says Buzzkill playing, and it starts playing the instant that Tao sits down next to Charlie. And I know like he's not trying to be a buzzkill, but dude. So they bowl for a little while, and there's this, you guys, oh my God. I think it's Nick. Yeah, Nick bowls. It's not a strike. It's close though. And him and Charlie sort of like lean toward each other with their arms out as if they're going to hug. But they stop and get this really awkward look. And Tao rolls his eyes a lot here, which I thought was interesting because I couldn't, like, what Tao suggests later. He pulls Charlie aside. He, like, has another talk with Elle. And she is like, dude, you have got to let this go. But he says, I have to tell Charlie. And she says, dude, it's his birthday. Don't. But he says, I have to. And I've got to be honest, you guys. As much as I have been frustrated with Tao, I agreed with him on this. This is like one of those topics that gets debated until the end of time. I will never change my mind, almost ever. Like, I'm sure that there are outlier situations that you could bring up and say, well, what about here? And I would be like, okay, then no. But almost always, if you know somebody is fucking around on somebody else that you are friends with, it would never even cross my mind to not tell them. Absolutely would not ever occur to me not to tell them. Like, what the fuck? Why would you not do that? And I know the answer is because then they get mad at you, or they don't believe you, or what. Oh, well, then they don't believe you. Then they get mad at you. Fine. I did my part. What they do with that is not about me, and it is none of my business. The only thing that is my business is that I have a friend that I am loyal to, and somebody is screwing with them. That's all I have control over. And yes, you tell. You know, like I would even hold this to myself. Like when I was married to Brendan and I was talking to Owen, if one of his friends found out I was talking to Owen and told Brendan, I would not be mad at that person. Like I would be mad at the fact that I got caught, but I would not be like, I can't believe you told. You're fucking around. You deserve to get caught. That's just facts, man. I don't know what to tell you. That's just like the fucking way shit shakes out. It always comes out. You always eventually get caught. It's just fucking facts. That's it. And whoever winds up telling, to me, it's important because if, for example, Owen were fucking around and Rashawn knew, and I wound up finding out months from now on some other, like by some other means, but then it was brought to my attention that Rashawn had known and never told me, I don't know that I could ever forgive her for that. I think that would be the end of the friendship. Like, that's a complete violation, her having that kind of information and just not sharing. And I have seen so many things where people are like, it's none of my business. I was watching Bones the other day. I'm rewatching that whole series. And for the most part, they actually have like handled things in a way that I'm pleased with. There is an episode where a trans woman has been killed, and she wasn't killed because of her transness. They call her by the correct name and use the correct pronouns, and correct people who use the wrong pronouns and dead name her. They're very good. But then sometimes they'll do things that I'm just like, what are you trying to say here? And there was an episode where they thought their friend was being cheated on, and the whole episode was everybody telling Bones not to get involved, that it was none of her business, that she shouldn't say anything, that she would regret it. And eventually she's like, I just want to tell the truth. And she does. And it turns out they aren't being cheated on. And she's like, oh, you guys were right. I shouldn't have said anything. To which I'm like, is that the conclusion you wanted us to draw? Because her telling somebody is a mark of caring about them. Like, the idea that you would simply keep that shit to yourself, for what reason? Because you don't want to be like on the receiving end of some uncomfortable emotions. If they find out you knew, it's going to be so much worse. Like, what do you think is going to happen? So anyway, I think, even though I understand Elle being like, it's his birthday, I really do get that. And one could argue maybe you could wait until tomorrow, but I understand Tao being like, I cannot sit on this. This dude is fucking here with us playing games, bowling, and being all cute. And we just fucking saw him say yes to going out with Imogen. And he's acting like that shit didn't happen. Like, literally, what the fuck? This is gross. I don't want to just sit here and pretend I don't know. And he's right. He's right. From his point of view, this looks really gross. We know enough about Nick to get very defensive and pissed at Tao, but just sit there and think what you would be thinking if you were in the position Tao is in and you had the information that Tao has. You would be so disgusted by Nick. His friends are trash. He seems inconsistent with the way that he's like treating your friend. And you saw him say yes to this girl when you know your friend has this massive crush and is like falling hard. Yeah. You know, this is a completely separate issue from Tao being worried that his friend group is getting broken up and that things aren't like they were in the old days. That sucks, and he needs to get over that. But this issue is a very specific thing that he has every right to be worried about. So anyway, I really appreciate that this like scene, as much as Charlie is upset to hear it, and as much as he has his instinctive reaction, because Tao is like, now you're going to tell me that I'm jealous and worried about ending up alone. Charlie, to his credit, he doesn't just lash out and go like, well, yeah, you are, and it's pathetic, or something like that. You know what I mean? He just says, are you? Which was actually kind of an amazing thing to say. Like, just to be like, I don't know, bro, like there's something's up, you know? And when he says it, well, aren't you? Tao blurts out no, but he does it in a way that I'm like, yeah, that is definitely true though, Tao. You can't, like, I can see all over your face, you know that that's true. I also liked when Charlie says that can't be true, Tao just says, oh, okay, don't believe me. I'm just lying for fun. That's my favorite, because so many people would just like not really stop and consider, what would this person even get out of making up a story like this? Like, why would they do that? And when you step back and really look at that, it's just like, well, you're either accusing them of like having an ulterior motive, but you have no concept of what that could be, or they're just like creating drama for the sake of it. And do they seem like that person that would do that? And, you know, no offense, Tao, you do a little, but like not really. You get what I'm saying? So anyway, Charlie walks up to get some more food at the counter, which is near the bathrooms, and he overhears them talking. Nick does. And Nick is listening as Charlie is saying, but he's my friend. And I really love Nick's acting here, because he simultaneously tenses up so bad, like he's so worried Charlie is going to just say it, and thus looks so relieved when he doesn't. But you can still see the disgust at himself, at the relief he feels. Like, Charlie is just so riddled with shame. I keep saying Charlie, I'm sorry. Nick, about the fact that he is making Charlie keep the secret. And so, yeah, he doesn't want to overhear Charlie betraying his trust and telling somebody. He doesn't want that. But also, hearing that Charlie didn't betray his trust even now, in the midst of this argument, it's like almost worse, you know? Like, he deserves so much better. And Nick knows that, which is what makes it so hard. So anyway, the conversation just sort of ends with Tao saying, look, I'm not going to try and like tell you not to see him anymore, but if he's even slightly mean to you, Charlie says, you'll murder him. I know. I was going to say I would send him a strongly worded DM, but murder's fine too. And it's a nice moment where Charlie kind of, you know, it could have gone very badly, but it seems like he actually appreciates it a little bit. And it's a good reminder to Charlie that there are people who care about him other than Nick, and you can't just put all of your eggs in the romantic relationship basket. It's a very easy thing to do, especially when romance is new to you. Like, I mean new in terms of you've just met somebody new, but I also mean new to you in terms of they are very young and you just start getting into your first romance and you can just completely forget about your friends because you are so excited about transitioning into a new era of your life. And it's not advisable. Like, just keep an eye on that, because I can't tell you guys how much I look back at certain parts of my life and realize how much I prioritized boyfriends over actual friends, and was always kind of mildly surprised when I didn't have a lot of close friends. And now I have started to understand I put so much stock in what men thought of me, and so much of my validation came from my relationships with men, that when I didn't have men in my life, I didn't know who I was. And I didn't have a support network that was like reliable. I really lost myself a little bit. And I think now about how if anything were to happen between me and Owen and I wound up single, I would stay that way. I'm just not really interested in continuing to like live my life that way. I'm really happy with Owen, and I would not change anything about being with him and being married to him. But I can see now what an advantage it is to take the time to get to know yourself as a person and get involved in your friends' lives and not completely wrap yourself up in a romantic relationship. So anyway, Charlie comes out. There's a bit of awkwardness. Eventually Nick does tell him that he overheard, but at this point, Nick just like lunges forward and hugs Charlie, who seems a little bit bemused. And he hugs him back, but you can see him just kind of being like, I don't know what's happening here. And then he lets himself enjoy the hug and just be kind of like, yeah, this is good shit. Okay, I'm going full in on this hug. And he like closes his eyes. But I get it. Like after that convo with Tao, for him to just like hug him, you just kind of go, what's happening here though? So we go back to the bowling game. Elle wins. Tao is super bad at this, apparently. And everybody winds up sort of splitting off to play different games. And Nick goes and sits next to Tao. And Tao, I love this. Nick is like so awkward. He's sitting like ramrod straight and like kind of turns his head toward Tao without making eye contact exactly right away. Before finally Tao says, good game, attempting to be like a little friendly. You want a chip? Thanks. And finally, Tao says, I don't know if this thing with Charlie is a joke, but for some reason he really likes you. And you're messing with him and I will not tolerate it. So consider this your final warning. And I really loved it. I will not tolerate it. And Nick just goes, yeah, you're right. You're a good friend. And Tao just says, I know. And does not break eye contact as he eats a chip, which was very funny. That was just funny. I'm sorry. It just is. So we then go to the gameplay, and Charlie and Nick they play like Mario Kart a little bit later. I think initially, they're playing the claw machine. That's right. And this is when he opens the gift. And it's a very adorable scene. This moment where Charlie asks him about Imogen, like, well, Nick confesses, I overheard you and Tao. I wanted to say sorry about the date with Imogen thing. And Charlie says, you actually went on a date? And he says, no. She asked me out and I was so surprised, and all our mates were watching and expecting me to say yes. And I was such an idiot. I just blurted out yes because I didn't know how to say no, and I didn't want to embarrass her or confuse them. And then her dog died and I felt really bad for her. And when he says that, Charlie starts to almost laugh. Like, I appreciated this. Charlie is just he's a mensch, I gotta say, in this moment. And Nick is just like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like fuck up like this. And Charlie says, we're not officially dating or anything. But Nick gets a look on his face and says, you know what? I'm going to talk to Imogen and just tell her that I don't like her like that. And gets this like wistful and puts his head against the claw machine and says, I wish I'd met you when I was younger. And I really loved this moment. I wish I'd known then what I know now. And I really wonder about people who don't realize they're gay until way later in life. You know, there are some people who know who they are right away. And then there are people who either are not connected enough with themselves to get it, or they have had such dogma shoved down their throat that they will never admit it to themselves for quite a long time. There's all sorts of reasons why you could be either unaware or in denial. And I definitely could see, if you have realized you're gay a little bit later, being low-key envious of people who understood immediately or very early. So anyway, the present opening, there's this, you guys, it's the cutest thing in the entire world, because Nick says that was one of my favorite days ever. So, and Charlie is just beaming. Oh my God, he's so excited. And Nick says, I really like you. And Charlie, looks like he's going to levitate and says, "You like me?" And Nick says, "Wasn't that obvious?" And then, "Do you like me?" And Charlie says, "Yes, obviously." And of course, very understandably, Charlie is like, "Oh my God, I really, really want to kiss you right now." And Nick's like, "Yeah, let's just do that." And, you know, they're in public, but they are out of sight enough. And they kiss. You guys, I cannot get over what good kisses these two have. Every time. They just both look like excellent kissers. And it's just like, I don't think I fully realized what a big deal it is how a kiss looks until understanding like the chemistry of this show. And this, I have seen a lot of bad on-screen kisses, kids. Wow. I would say like most of them, you know? And there's something about the ones that where it's like a big open mouth and like, and it's supposed to be more romantic because you're like going at it harder. It's not though. It's just kind of uncomfortable and gross and noisy. And these two have like slightly open mouth, but not too much. Like it's like a little sensual without being super sexual and sweet at the same time. Like it's just very, very good balance. I'm super impressed. That's My Book says their intimacy coordinator did a good job as well. David Thackeray choreographed these intimate moments amazingly. Yeah, that's like the intimacy coordinator thing I know is becoming more and more of a thing. And I just think that's such a great concept. David Thackeray. That's such a great name. Cindy says, Nick is so worried about being like Ben, but Ben would never even have considered coming to the party, let alone kissing Charlie in public. 100%. Exactly. That's My Book said, I wonder if Nick also means he wishes he had Charlie as a friend when he was younger, so he wouldn't have ended up with such a useless group of friends who he's not himself around. That's a really good point. I didn't think of it in terms of like just sheer friendship and like, you know, having a different group to hang out with, but that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, they have just like this amazing kiss. It's the best. They pull away from each other and I'm just like, my God, you guys just need to go get a room. And I don't mean that in a get out of my face sort of thing. I'm like, no, please go and get a room, please. Like for your sake. And Nick puts his hands in his pockets. And I recall when I was in school, I would kiss my boyfriend and he would have to put his hands in his pockets because of reasons. And I'm sort of like, is that a choice that Nick is making because of reasons? Is that a choice the actor's making because of reasons? Or, you know, is it just like happened to put his hands in it? It might be nothing. But that was what I thought of because of my experiences in high school. So Charlie walks away and Nick texts Imogen to cancel. And says, I can explain everything tomorrow. And then we get the gameplay with everybody. Isaac is playing one of those coin games by himself and like hits it big and just completely cleans up. And I already mentioned the Elle and Tao like playing together and sparklies around their heads and hearts and Elle looking like unsure of herself. Then we go to Imogen and the scene with her. And I really appreciated how thorough Nick was in explaining, because he says, I'll explain everything. And he really means it. He basically is like, look, I don't like you like that. And it's not about you. It hasn't got anything to do with you. I just don't think that we fit. And then I'm not sure I fit with you or with any of our friends. And she's like, we've known each other for ages and hang out every morning. And I like the way that she says this, but there's no sense from her of like, of course you fit. You're our friend. It's genuinely simply the sheer length of time they've been aware of each other. You know what I mean? Like, she's not actually making an emotional argument. She's just arguing that you should feel like you fit because you've been there since the start. And that's exactly his point. He says, do you ever feel like you just do things because everybody else is doing them? And you're scared to change? And you're maybe like worried you're going to do something that would confuse or surprise people? And she gets a look, and I'm like, yep. Yep, she gets it. She definitely, like, when he says this, it hits something. You can tell. And, like, your real personality has been, like, buried inside you for a really long time. I guess that's how I've been feeling recently. And I know it sounds, I can't remember what word he uses. Like, it sounds stupid or something. Or no, he says it probably makes no sense. And she very quickly is like, no, I think I get it. And I just really like this. The two of them, like, actually having a real conversation so that she understands it isn't about her. He's not, like, rejecting her. It's about him. Because it's very easy to be like, it's not you, it's me. But, like, he's elaborating so that that is true and believable. And I loved that after he says this, the camera pulls away, but she doesn't get up and leave, which is fully what I expected. I thought after he rejects her, she gets up and walks away and he's left sitting there on the bench. No. She stays. Which I feel like we're moving into a new phase of relationship with Imogen. Now friends is like a real thing, like a real friend. And I am here for this transition. I'm so glad that I didn't let myself hate her. So then we go to the next morning and they're sitting next to each other and fucking Harry again. So how was your date? And she speaks up on Nick's behalf, which that was not what I thought was going to happen. I really thought Nick was going to have to be, you know, the guy always has to set his friends straight or whatever. She says, we decided we're better off as friends. And when Harry says, what did Nick do? She says, nothing. I just think I can do better. And I couldn't help but laugh. Like, Nick looks a little upset at the joshing, but honestly, I thought her saying that was cute. Like, I just thought that was good natured and a really good way to sort of deflect and handle it. And fucking Harry comes up behind Nick and, like, grabs him in this sort of chokehold. And I loved how aggressive, like, it's just violent almost and startling it is. So you really get the sense of how uncomfortable Nick is. Like, Harry's allegedly just, oh, I'm just joshing you because you're my friend. But it really doesn't feel that way. It's just, there's no need to be this intense, Harry. Chill, you know? So it ends with Harry saying, you're really thick about girls, aren't you? And I'm just like, kind of. I mean, yeah. And that's the end of the episode. Oh boy. Guys, there's only 3 left. I have another recording tomorrow because I'm front loading the week since I have to take the rest of the week off. Then I'm going to be recording on the 26th, but I am taking my birthday week off, so I won't be recording again until oh, that's right. And we had to move it back because Cindy's going on a trip. So I won't get to watch the last 2 episodes until the 17th is the next one, I think. I'm trying to see if I have this right. Oh, that's so long. That's such a long time. Oh my God, you guys. That's too much time. I'm just saying. I'm so sad, you guys. Because, yeah, we have... Cindy says that's only the last one episode. Wait, what? I'm looking to see. Tomorrow, Cindy... Okay. Oh. So I have to wait for the finale episode until the 17th. Oh, that's really rough. Oh, that's such a long time. Wow. You guys, the things that I do for this job, I swear, you don't know. You guys don't know the sacrifices I make and the heartache, the suffering I endure for your entertainment, you sick fucks. All right, guys. I will be seeing you tomorrow. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.